Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 38. Paid online advertising.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
In my last show, I talked about my efforts to revive my flagging sales of my Magpies and Magic book, and over the last week I've started to set up some advertising campaigns in various places to try and promote the book. I haven't yet been particularly successful, though I've only started most of them in the last day or so. I haven't, however, talked in great detail about paid advertising online. I'm a tremendous fan of online advertising, mainly because I find the variety of targeting options are just awesome compared to normal advertising you would think in like magazines and other places. You can literally target down to particular niches for extremely affordable amounts of money using the right kinds of online advertising. But too many people just consider one or two like Facebook or some other approach when there's actually multiple options available. And whether one will work for your book or not depends very much on what your book is about and who you're trying to target it to. I've been slightly unfocused in some ways because I've been playing around with a new targeting option that's just become available, which is Snapchat custom geo filters. I wouldn't suggest necessarily rushing into using this unless you're a nutter who likes to try out new things like I do. This basically allows you to pick a particular location and for a particular time and then have filter that is available to be used by Snapchat users in that particular location. Now obviously this is going to be more useful for events and places where there's a large congregation of people who may be using Snapchat. And if you've got an encouraging filter that they may want to add to their snaps, then you can get a vast amount of free advertising based on the initial cost of setting up that filter. However, whether it's actually practicable in terms of selling books, I think the jury's still out on that. It's like with all the other options that I'm going to go through. If you've got a book that's relevant to a particular audience that's all located in one place at one time, and they're the right demographic to use Snapchat, then geofilters might be the way to go. However, there are a huge number of other options, and many of the options available also include other geofilterable options. For example, on Facebook ads, you can also target a small area and say that you only want to show ads to that small area. So being able to target a particular geographical region isn't necessarily that unique to Snapchat. So I'm briefly going to go through each of the online methods of advertising that are available to smaller authors for smaller amounts of money. There are other options if you're prepared to spend thousands of pounds, but all of these options are available for relatively small amounts of money, though it's extremely easy to spend way too much on them by accident, especially on Google Adwords. So I would start off reading as many tutorials and things as you can about them before using them too much in anger, and always set a low campaign budget. So don't have like an unlimited budget, even if you just run a low daily advert rate, at least to begin with. Because it's very easy to start an advert running and then forget about it. And if you haven't got a limit to the campaign funds that you spend on it, you can end up wasting a lot of money on an advert that just isn't performing. The first freely available online advertising platform is the famous Google Adwords. Now, most people, when you talk about Google Adwords, they will talk about search, when actually search is only one aspect that's available for Google Adwords. What I mean by search advertising is that if you go into Google and you type, say, book about fluffy cats, then there will be various books rated there based on how well and how popular they are. There will also be listings at the top where it will say advert, and then it will have some books about fluffy cats. Don't necessarily represent the same ones as the organically listed ones below. This is going to be achieved by paid search. So you set up an advert for books about fluffy cats, and then anybody who types books about fluffy cats into Google will see your book listed above some of the organically listed ones where people have spent a lot of time building up links and things to their site about books about fluffy cats. The trouble with search on AdWords is that it can get extremely expensive because there are no doubt people who are actually spending quite a large amount of money on typing books about fluffy cats, and it may not be profitable to actually do search advertising. However, this is not the whole situation in terms of what you can do with AdWords. As well as supporting search adverts, they also have what's called display adverts. Now, these are these little adverts that you see on websites where they can either be on the side or in the middle or animated, and they're actually displayed. They're not as a result of search. Now, you may think that these are fairly meaningless because lots of people block them. But what is powerful about this on AdWords is that you can actually target this by a specific list of web pages. So say you have a book about hiking in the Andes or something like that. There's 2 or 3 major blogs where it's all about hiking in the Andes. If some of those blogs are funded by Google AdWords, as you'll often find is the case, you can list those websites specifically for providing Google AdWords display ads, so that people who visit that site who haven't got ad blockers on will see adverts for your book about hiking in the Andes. And this can be extremely powerful if you've got a synergy with particular blogs that use Google AdWords as an advertising front. It is possible, if you're a blog that has got advertising on it, to restrict particular categories in terms of what's displayed. So it's not always the case that this will work. But if your book is genuinely relevant and you're not competing directly on with the person whose site it is, there's a very good chance that your adverts will appear, and it'll be considerably cheaper because you're just restricting yourself to 2 or 3 of these really niche blogs that are similar to your book. Another factor about AdWords that people often forget is that it also includes advertising on YouTube and on Gmail. Now, YouTube in itself, you can do the same kind of display and search advertising that you can on AdWords. The display functionality is particularly interesting because similarly to with websites, you can also list particular YouTube videos you want your short 30-second or longer advert to appear in front of. You've probably all been on YouTube and gone to see the latest cat video and then had this advert playing in front of it. Those adverts are available for anywhere between sort of 15 and 80 cents. And you can target them to specific YouTube videos. So again, if there's a video about hiking in the Himalayas for your second book about hiking, and it's really, really popular, then you can just push in your own little 30-second video advert in front of that and be able to promote to that really niche audience. Another recently introduced option that I haven't yet used is that you can actually advertise in people's email boxes if they use the Gmail functionality. Now, this is pretty great as well because it allows you to get in front of people in a totally different way. It appears like an email in their email boxes, is my understanding. Now, I don't know yet what the targeting options are for this, but I would guess they're similar to the other Google AdWords options, probably by keywords and things that are available in the mail. But I'm certainly going to try that out, and I'll let you know how I get on with that. The new kid on the block in terms of advertising is Facebook. Well, I say new kid on the block, they're actually the kid on the block at the moment. They've really muscled out Google for a large amount of advertising, mainly because advertising in Facebook means that you aren't going to get beaten by all the ad blockers that you'll see on most websites, because Facebook controls what appears in their newsfeed. One thing that you can do on Facebook is you can target by all sorts of information that Facebook holds about you. Like how old you are, where you're based in the world, also what pages you like on Facebook, and also down to a particular geographical area. You can pick out a postcode or a radius. So you can say, I want to go advertise 2 miles around Big Ben in London to people who want to, my latest book about Big Ben. It's also now been added the functionality that you can combine interests. Previously, you had to pick an interest, say like Kindle or fantasy, but now you can combine it and say you want Kindle and fantasy, a Facebook advertising option. And you can also include this with demographic and targeting information based on location. A really powerful thing that Facebook have pioneered, and now Google and also LinkedIn have started to adopt, is something called custom audiences. So this is where you upload a list of email addresses And Facebook will work out if those people are actually on Facebook and then create a custom audience based on that, based on their Facebook accounts. So if you upload, say, 200 email addresses, you might find that 160 of those are matched to Facebook account. And then it will create what's called a custom audience. And then you can send adverts to either that whole audience or subparts of that audience. You can include things like interests and other criteria within it. Now, you're limited at the moment that you need at least 100 people before you can create a custom audience. You can also create a custom audience for something that is called remarketing, where you can send adverts to people who have already visited your website. And again, this can be done down to a particular level. This can say people who visited a particular page on your website. Now, this becomes more practicable when you have very large traffic to your website. Because if you've only got a few people, then you won't be able to create a custom audience for it. But for people with lots of website traffic, Facebook retargeting and custom audiences are a phenomenal way to reattach to people who've already visited your site or already on your emailing list. The great problem in my mind with Facebook is that the prices are being bid up in a similar way to what happened to Google AdWords. As everybody has discovered Facebook advertising. The way that people like Mark Dawson, who is an expert on advertising Facebook for authors, are getting traction is by giving away books in return for email addresses, using Facebook advertising as a way to push out adverts and get people onto their email list, and then using custom audiences and a feature called lookalike audiences, where it creates similar audiences to the custom audience to actually get more fans and more people on their email list. Like with most things, whether this approach will keep working in the long term is anybody's guess. Another option for those of you in the US is advertising using promoted pins on Pinterest. There's fairly limited targeting options at the moment on Pinterest. I think you can target by interest. However, Pinterest has the advantage that pins tend to stay around for a long period of time. And also that if you've got a book that's about a subject which is big on Pinterest, like weddings or cookery or something along those lines, then this may be an option to look at if you're based in the US. Allegedly, Pinterest is supposed to be rolling it out to the rest of the world at some point this year. Though that's what they said last year. Another option that often gets overlooked is LinkedIn. LinkedIn advertising has got the reputation of being expensive and not worth the effort. However, I think if you restrict yourself to fairly small audiences on it, then I've not found it that expensive. In fact, I've advertised this podcast on LinkedIn in a few cases. The unique attribute about LinkedIn is that you can advertise to people based on job titles, companies and skills. If you've got a book about, say, customer service, you can target to people who are customer service managers. So, for example, something like advanced double-entry bookkeeping would be a perfect candidate for LinkedIn advertising. Or something like raunchy steam romance 4 wouldn't be, because there's no way to use it to find romance or other people interested in that. It's always a case of finding the advertising platform that's appropriate for your particular book. Another option is Goodreads. And they've got their self-service mechanism, which has been in beta for ages. What this allows you to do is to pick particular genres or particular authors in Goodreads and target to them. I've used this with reasonable results in the past. If your work is very similar to another author's, then this kind of advertising may be a very good way to get exposure on Goodreads. The final option that I'm going to cover today, even though there are actually many other advertising platforms you can use, I just haven't used most of them, is Amazon advertising. You need to be a member of KDP Select to advertise a book on Amazon, and the advertising options on Amazon aren't as great as it would be if you were advertising a non-book product. When I tried them, I didn't find them particularly effective in general, though it does have a fairly unique targeting option that you can actually target based on Amazon product IDs. So if you've got a book that is very tied into another product on Amazon, for example, you've got a book about chess, then you could advertise on the pages on Amazon of particular chessboards. And this would be a great way to actually get exposure for your product. Like with all things in terms of advertising, it's finding locations where your potential readers will be present, and then trying to find an advertising medium to get your book in front of them, in the hope that some or all of them will actually convert and start buying your book. I know there's a certain vogue towards just using Facebook advertising, and the options in terms of targeting on Facebook are way and above any of the other platforms. Though with LinkedIn, you do get the option to go by job title, and on Amazon, you can go by specific Amazon product. Similarly, on Google, you can go for particular websites that you want to target, and also particular YouTube videos. So there are lots of different potential ways of finding places where your audience of potential readers will be concentrated and targeting towards them. You then need to work on getting your ad copy and text perfect, which, to be honest, I'm not particularly great at the moment. Hopefully this has given you some ideas in terms of options in terms of targeting for paid advertising. I know many authors don't like the idea of paid advertising, apart from the simple things like doing a BookBub ad or something along those lines. But there are many options and many unique ways that you can target to people using online advertising. So I'd certainly suggest that people spend the time to look into each of these and see if, say, there is a YouTube video that they can record an advert in front of that will get them traffic, or maybe there's a website they can pick, or maybe there is a Facebook page that they can target interests against. There are all sorts of options out there. You don't have to waste money on large, broad advertising to large groups of people. You need to pick your specific niches and try and target towards those. Well, that's all for this week. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.